So the Manchester United co-owner Sir Jim Ratcliffe has caused so much controversy over the last few days. Let's just remind ourselves what he said about migrants.
You can't have an economy with 9 million people on benefits and huge levels of immigrants coming in. I mean, the UK is being colonised. It's costing too much money. It will cause...
It's been colonised.
It'll cause... Well, yeah. The UK is being colonised by immigrants, really, isn't it? I mean, the population of the UK was 58 million in 2020. Now it's 70 million. That's 12 million people.
Well, my TalkSport colleague Simon Jordan has been talking about this. This is what he has said.
What's your reaction? So let's pare this back a little bit. I think the term of colonisation is probably clumsy. But if you look at the underlying sentiment, put aside the analysis that he's misquoted some figures. Because the population in 2000 was 58 million. The population in the UK is 70 million in 2025, which means we've had a 21% increase, 20 to 21% increase in our population. The population of Europe has gone from 728 million to 744 million, which means Europe as a continent has had a 2% increase in population. You then distill down the German population increase, the Italian, the Spanish, the French. No one has had a population explosion like we have. So to go to the sentiment about the population, irrespective of whether he said 2020 or 2000, he is right. The population explosion, however it's manifested itself, has created a strain on this country.
Simon Jordan there speaking on our sister station TalkSport. Another story I want to talk about today actually is what's happening in Brighton and in other cities too, where people are going door to door, knocking the doors of people and saying, do you sign up for this campaign, which means that you boycott Israeli products? Now, it's fascinating because Carla Denyer, who's the leader of the Greens, said that she wanted to, well, she is taking part in that, and we asked her on the programme. Surprisingly, she said no. I want to talk about all of these issues. James Ball is the political editor of The New World. James, you're very welcome to the programme. How are you this morning?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. What do you think of what Jim Ratcliffe has said?
Well, I think it's a bit of an issue when the bits that aren't wrong are just gratuitously offensive. His figures are out by an absolute mile, and I think if most of us had embarrassed ourselves like that on live TV, we might just say sorry and retract the point.
He has, though. He has apologised.
No, he hasn't. He said he's sorry if we're hurt by his comments, or we're sorry if some people were offended. I know a non-apology.
Do you think that's a sort of boyfriend apology?
It's a PR company told him to apologise. He wasn't willing to, and so they've come out with an absolutely dreadful statement.
The FA were talking about banning him from Old Trafford. I mean, he is the co-owner of the club. Surely he's entitled to his opinion, even if his facts aren't right.
He's absolutely entitled to an opinion, and I think everyone is entitled to find it fairly gratuitously offensive. I mean, he got the numbers completely wrong, and I think that sort of takes the ankles out of his argument. But to say we're colonised is pretty gratuitously offensive. You know, it's also based on a whole bunch of myths. You know, the idea that there's millions of people here who don't speak English is false. 99.8% of us speak English. I haven't noticed culture radically change. Sometimes you might see a street sign.
You haven't noticed culture radically changing, really?
I really haven't. I mean, I live in London. It's the most multicultural bit of the sort of country.
Well, yeah, and it has been for years.
It's not changed in 20 years.
Well, maybe your part of London hasn't changed that much, but there are many, many parts of the country where things have changed rather dramatically because of immigration. The culture has changed, that there are various areas that people live in, don't want to live in, whatever, and they may feel Jim Ratcliffe may have been clumsy in his words, but had some point in what he was saying. There has been a huge amount of immigration, and indeed emigration, which everybody forgets. People keep saying, oh, immigration, the total numbers, the net migration number has gone down, but there are a lot of people leaving as well.
Most people who leave are previous immigrants, which often is exactly the best thing that you can have economically for your country. If someone arrives as an adult and you haven't paid for their education, works here for 10 years, 20 years, and then leaves before they're a pensioner, that is the dream. That is the absolute best case scenario for your economy.
Yes, but actually we're talking about, hold on a second, we're talking about this story a little bit later on actually, about huge numbers of foreign students who are coming in, using our universities and then not paying their bills. That's a big problem too.
I absolutely think we have to think about that. You know, if you're going to have a system that's reliant on extremely high foreign fees, and that's what props up our universities, we've sort of made a decision to underinvest in universities, meaning we rely on foreign student income to fund home students. If we don't get those bills, the whole system falls apart. And so, of course, we have to pay attention to that. We have a lot of issues because we don't build enough homes. We don't fund services well enough. And it's very easy to look at immigration and blame that.
You're absolutely right. We need to build more homes, particularly in the south of the country. I don't think it's just quite as big a problem in the north of England anyway, and in Scotland. But the point is, surely, that we're building those homes because immigration is a big thing. The people are rising. The number of people in the country is rising, and the culture is changing. It may not be changing that much in London because it's a very multicultural city. You know, white people born in Britain are the minority in London. That's been the case for some time. But that's not always the case in many other cities where things are changing and the culture is changing. That's undeniable, James.
I mean, my family's scattered across County Durham and across West Yorkshire, and these are the same places that I grew up in. I don't think it's that much of a burden to have a wider range of food and to have sort of a changing complexion of neighbourhoods.
But that's not the point.
I do think the core of
James,
this,
that's not the point. The point is, I'm not against people coming to this country if we have room for them, and if they are building a life here, if they want to do that, if they're paying taxes and contributing to the economy. The point is that Jim Ratcliffe has a wider point where he is saying that there is a change in the culture of this country, and a lot of our viewers and listeners are very, very worried about that.
I think to say colonised is fairly gratuitously offensive in that context. I think you can say people are coming and that changes and that creates issues. That's fine, but immigration slowed down. Most people who come to work. We have, you know, the NHS would fall apart without immigration. We didn't make the choices so that we could do this without immigration. You know, there are debates to have. There are things to tackle with it. But I think saying that we've been colonised is just absolute hysterical scaremongering. And I do think at the core of it are racist attitudes. And I think Ratcliffe actually owed a better apology than he gave.
I'm sure Jim Ratcliffe would deny being racist.
But they're offensive.
Okay, I'm sure Jim Ratcliffe would deny being racist.
I'm sure he would, yes.
Yeah. The point is, I suppose, in what he's saying is that there is, to many people, a kernel of truth, and to many people that he will be representing what they think. It's not necessarily racist to look at the changing complexity of our country, the fact that there are many people who don't hold with British values, and that is something that he was representing and talking about. And it's interesting because you have demands for an apology. He has given an apology. You say it's not enough, and that's fair enough. But interestingly, I wonder where it goes now, if anywhere.
I think it will probably peter out. I think these things usually do. I mean, you know, a stupid rich man who doesn't actually live in the UK anymore, he's an immigrant to Monaco, said a stupid thing. I mean, you know, if that turned into a weeks-long scandal every time, we'd never get anything done. And maybe we don't get anything done.
Well, that appears to be a problem this week for the government anyway. I want to ask you about Keir Starmer in just a second, actually. But let's see what Nigel Farage has said on the Jim Ratcliffe controversy.
Well, he said that our population has gone up from 58 million to 70 million, and that with 9 million people of working age on benefits, we don't need mass migration. He said much of the country had been colonised by immigrants. Now, that word was a controversial word, and he said, OK, if you don't like the word, we'll tone it down. But just think about this. You ask yourself why public services have diminished. You ask yourself why rents have gone through the roof. The population explosion has done that. And then you look at parts of London, for example, where the road names, the underground signs, aren't just in English, they're in a foreign language as well. 1 million people living in this country don't speak any English at all. 4 million people living in this country barely speak passable English. And that's the point that he was making.
What do you make of what Nigel Farage has said there?
Well, he has defended wrong numbers with wrong numbers. He's got them out by a mile. There's less than 200,000 people in the country who don't speak English. There's less than 1 million who don't speak passable English. I think we should work on that. I think integration matters. I don't think people are wrong to be concerned about it, but I don't think it helps to get the numbers wrong or to sort of play in that way. I think we can have a much better debate on immigration, on some of the issues that it causes with public services and with housing, if we are willing to sort of call out sort of some people and some much more niche attitudes that just don't want to see people who don't look like them in the country. And I think whatever Nigel Farage or Jim Ratcliffe's actual views are, I think they're sort of trying to conflate the two and play those together.
I think Jim Ratcliffe was pretty clear in what his views are. I don't think that was particularly varnished. Can I ask you about something else? And it's something that's been bothering me for a couple of days. There's this narrative emerging now about Keir Starmer this week that he has a woman problem. There are lots of people saying he has a woman problem. There's a boys' club in number 10. But if you just look at the evidence here, I don't think that's true. Maybe you disagree with me and that's fine. I'll hear what you have to say in a second. The Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner, the Foreign Secretary, Yvette Cooper, formerly the Home Secretary, his first Chief of Staff was Sue Gray, his two Deputy Chiefs of Staff are both women as well. They're acting up as Chief of Staff at the moment. And we're in a situation where we're told he has a woman problem. I mean, either all of those 5 women have no agency whatsoever, or he's just a bad Prime Minister. What do you think?
I mean, it's always possible it's both, isn't it?
Yeah, true.
I think there has been a complaint from senior women in Labour, including people who've been in the cabinet, that essentially the inner circle is staff and not the cabinet, and that Morgan McSweeney and a couple of male aides in number 10 were the real inner circle, and even figures like Angela Rayner or like senior women in the cabinet were essentially shunted to a side and not listened to. So you've got the great office of state, but in reality, you're not getting your advice through, you're not getting your message through. I think there has been a very blokey, very aggressive number 10 culture that has very obviously briefed against cabinet ministers, that has briefed against other figures in Labour. You know, you saw a fairly shameful incident in which Louise Haigh got fired for a criminal conviction that she had disclosed to number 10. And there were a lot of
It wasn't made public, though, James. It wasn't made public.
No, but there were lots of suspicions about how that became public. You know, Keir Starmer...
Do you want a cabinet minister who's got a fraud conviction?
Keir Starmer chose to do that. He knew about that, and he hired her.
But then it was found out, then it was public. Surely he had to sack her.
So, well, why?
Because she's got a fraud conviction. I don't want someone. I don't want someone in the cabinet who's been convicted of a criminal offence.
Well, I think this gets us to the problem of Keir Starmer. You know, he hired Peter Mandelson knowing Mandelson was friends with Epstein, and then fired him when the public found out the extent of that. He hired Louise Haigh knowing she had a fraud conviction, and then fired her when the public found out.
Yet he's Mr. Rules and Mr. Integrity.
Yes, he's a very, very unlucky Mr. Rules, isn't he?
Yes, isn't he? Thank you, James. Really interesting to talk to you this morning. I don't think we agree on all of those things, but it doesn't matter. On my programmes, we disagree without being disagreeable. That's James Ball there. He's political editor of The New World. Just a bit of breaking